So after discussing the indifference curve and the main concept of indifference curve, we are going to discuss some additional concepts of indifference curve. And before discussing those, you should recall the assumptions which we have discussed in the previous slides. So another or new concept of indifference curve is that it can happen that there may be, you can say, an indifference map. Okay, so it is a graph which contains a set of indifference curves showing the market basket among which a consumer is indifferent. So when we were discussing the concept of indifference curve, we have discussed that every point here in this particular indifference curve are the points among which the consumer is indifferent, or every such combination of cloth and food available on this particular indifference curve is showing that the consumer is having equal, you can say, benefit from all of the you can say combination of market baskets which is available on this particular indifference curve. ठीक है, और हमने ये चीज़ भी पढ़ी थी कि फॉर एग्जांपल वी हैव डिस्कस द लेट मी गो टू द प्रीवियस स्लाइड कि यहाँ पर हमने क्या पढ़ा था, देयर इज जी फॉर एग्जांपल, ठीक है, विच इज शोइंग यू अ लेस प्रेफर्ड एरिया, ठीक है, अगेंस्ट ए डी एंड बी, ठीक है, ए डी और बी के अंदर तो वो इनडिफरेंट है, बट अगेंस्ट जी, ठीक है, जी इज कंसिडर्ड अ लेस प्रेफर्ड एरिया एंड ई इज कंसिडर्ड एज अ more preferred area. So consider that there is another point here which we are saying, for example, C, ठीक है, and there is another point here which is for example I, ठीक है, and we are saying that at point C what is happening, ठीक है, what is happening at point C, almost 22 of food is being is available in this particular market basket, and 55 of clothing is available in this particular market basket, ठीक है, and E के अंदर क्या है, 40 units of clothing and 30 units of food. So more units of food against market basket C, and less units of you can say clothing. And then we have I, in which you are having less units of 30 of clothing but more units of food. So again, this is a new category now. This is a new category of market baskets between which the individual may become indifferent. क्योंकि अगर आप C और B को compare करें, C और B के अंदर क्या हो रहा है कि B is offering 50 units of clothing whereas C is offering 55 units of clothing, ठीक है, for example I'm saying that here we have 55, ठीक है, and here at B 10 units of food is being offered, while at C 22 units or 23 units of a good is being offered, ठीक है. So again, if you want to choose between C and B, you will clearly give preference to C, ठीक है. So this, all of these points are now another category which is showing more combinations of or more units of clothing and food, ठीक है, against the points which were here in this particular indifference curve, ठीक है. तो आप इसको इस तरह लेके समझें कि we have made another indifference curve of, you can say, some more you can say market baskets, and this is a new category, ठीक है, but between these market baskets the individual is indifferent, ठीक है. So likewise is the thing which we have discussed here. तो इसके अंदर अब मुझे ये बताएं कि if you want to give you want to compare all the points which are at U2 against U1, ठीक है, तो आप क्या बोलेंगे, consumer is more, you can say, he can satisfy his wants and needs more in this particular indifference curve or in this particular indifference curve U2. So your answer will be clearly that a consumer will be choosing any such market basket which is available on U2 because it is maximizing his utility, it is maximizing its you can say want and desires, ठीक है. So therefore it is an additional concept of indifference map that it is a graph which contains a set of indifference curves showing the market baskets among which a consumer is indifferent, but yes, U1 is less preferable than U2 and U2 is less preferable than U3. So higher the indifference curve, higher will be the utility which the person may be attaining, okay. So an indifference map is a set of indifference curve that describes a person's preferences, okay. Any market basket on indifference curve U3 such as market basket A, okay, A is given or is preferred to any basket on curve U2, okay, for example market basket B in this case, which in turn is preferred to any market basket U1 such as D. So any such market basket, sorry, which is giving you more which is giving you any such market basket which is given preference to another market basket is the market basket which is giving more satisfaction to a consumer. So any point here on indifference curve U1 is less preferable than any point here available on this particular utility curve or indifference curve, and any point here in this utility curve or indifference curve U3 is giving more preference to the consumer. This is the concept of indifference curve. If you want to summarize this discussion, we can say that higher the indifference curve, higher the consumer will be getting benefit, higher the consumer will be attaining or higher will be the satisfaction level of the consumer. The next thing which we have to discuss in the indifference curve is that the indifference curve cannot intersect with each other. Okay? The indifference curve cannot intersect with each other, and what is the cause of this, and what is the foundation of this is the assumption of transitivity. So I will like to recall you all. Okay, what was the assumption of transitivity? ठीक है, ट्रांजिटिविटी की assumption क्या थी कि if for example you are giving preference to A against B, ठीक है, and then you are giving preference to B against C, ठीक है, so you are giving preference A to C, so you are giving preference A to C, and likewise is the case that if you are indifferent between A and B, ठीक है, आप इसमें से कोई भी चूज कर सकते हैं, and you are also indifferent between B and C, ठीक है, आप इसमें से कोई भी चूज कर सकते हैं, then certainly you will be indifferent between A and B. Okay, you should recall this assumption and then discuss that what is the concept of indifference curve and why the indifference curves cannot intersect with each other. So here we are saying that there are 2 points, okay, in this indifference curve. Focus on this indifference curve. We have A here and B here, okay, on the same indifference curve, and if any of the market basket is on the same indifference curve, तो हम क्या कहते हैं कि it is giving equal benefit to the consumer, it is equally satisfying the want of a consumer चाहे इसको चूज करे, इस पॉइंट को चूज करे, या A को चूज करे या B को चूज करे, he will be indifferent in choosing all the market baskets which are available at U1. So for this particular consumer, A and B is equal for him, okay, he is indifferent between A and B, okay. But on the same side, if you are focusing on the next indifference curve which is U2, and you are looking that his again A is also available at U2 as well, U2 के ऊपर भी available है A, ठीक है, and at this particular indifference curve, ठीक है, at this particular indifference curve, every point which is lying on this indifference curve is giving equal benefit to the consumer, ठीक है, तो हम क्या कह रहे हैं कि A is equal to D here as well, ठीक है, or any other point which is available on U2, ठीक है. So in this we are saying that A is equal to D, A is equal to D, ठीक है, and transitivity suggests that if A is equal to B, A is giving equal benefit as B, and A is giving equal benefit than D, then this should happen that B should be equal to D, B should be equal to D. This is the assumption of transitivity. ऐसे है या नहीं है? But is B equal to D here? Because for example, if we mark or see that where D is lying, so it is giving you for example 10 units of clothing, ठीक है, and food is for example 15 units of food. Here look at B, what is happening to B. B is offering more. B is offering more. So you have 12 units of clothing here, and here you have for example 18 units of food, ठीक है. So B is clearly preferred to D. It is not equal to D. It is not equal to D. B is not B is not giving equal benefit to the consumer as D is offering to the consumer. In this case we are looking that B is clearly preferable to a consumer, ठीक है, against D. कंज्यूमर ने अगर बी और डी में से किसी को चूज करना होगा तो किसको करेगा, वो हमेशा बी को करेगा, बिकॉज बी इज ऑफरिंग मोर यूनिट्स ऑफ क्लोथिंग एंड फूड, ठीक है, बात समझ में आ रही है. सो this scenario in which we are saying that the indifference curves are intersecting with each other is a scenario which violates the assumption of transitivity, and the assumption of transitivity is that if A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then A should be equal to B. Here we are looking that A is equal to B and A is equal to D, but B is not equal to D. B is clearly preferable to D. This is a case, this is a scenario which has been built up. Why? Because of the intersection of indifference curves, and therefore we are saying that indifference curves cannot intersect with each other. And likewise is the description of this graph also written here, that according to this diagram, the consumer should be indifferent among market baskets A, B, and D. Yet B should be preferred to D because B has more of both goods. Okay, so therefore we cannot say that the indifference curves should intersect with each other. Another concept of indifference curve is the you can say slope of marginal rate of substitution. And before discussing this, or before getting to know about this, you should understand the case of, or you can say the assumption or the law of diminishing marginal utility. Take a law of diminishing marginal utility. Again, I guess you have understood this law in Econ 100, law of diminishing मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी. ठीक है, और ये मतलब कि ये डिस्कस आप लोगों ने किया हुआ है कॉन 100 के अंदर भी. एंड अगेन आई एम गोइंग टू रिकॉल दिस कॉन्सेप्ट that for example you are thirsty and you want to drink water. ठीक है, so you have drunk a cup of water. ठीक है, and you have fulfilled your utility from it. You have got the satisfaction which you needed. ठीक है, and then you drank another, for example, cup of water. ठीक है, and that was your second cup of water, and then you started to drink the third one. Okay, now what is happening, that the marginal utility or the additional utility which you are having after drinking the water has started to diminish. अगर आप पहला glass पानी का पी रहे हैं, yes you were thirsty and you got the benefit from it. The next glass is not offering you as much utility as the first glass was offering you, and likewise the third glass is not offering you as much as the second glass was offering you. Okay, so this is law of diminishing margin utility, that any additional utility which you will be gaining from using the same product will start to diminish. This is the law of diminishing marginal utility. In this case we are looking that, अच्छा अब ये चीज अगर आपको समझ में आ गई है, then think about clothing and food. Okay, what is happening to clothing and food, or while we are moving from point, for example, A to B. Okay, we are sacrificing 6 units of clothing, and we, in order to get one more unit of food, we are sacrificing. If you want to move from point A to point B, just consider this and leave the rest of the discussion. कि A और B के दरमियान में अगर हमने जाना है, we are moving from point A to point B, we are sacrificing 6 units of clothing. ठीक है, 16 था ना, हम 10 पे आ गए. So we have sacrificed 6 units of clothing in order to get one more unit of food. So this is the slope, with the concept of slope, which we have also discussed in elasticity, and it is measured by rise over run. Okay, so -6 and divided by 1, which is -6 again. Okay, so we are saying that if we want to move from point A to point B, we are sacrificing 6 units in order to get one more units of food. Now consider that you have got food, you have eaten food. ठीक है, आपने खाना शाना खा लिया. Now you want to get one more unit of food. ठीक है, so the next unit of food will not be giving you much marginal utility. It will not be giving you much additional utility. ठीक है, so that you are willing to sacrifice 6 units of food, 6 units of cloth. मतलब अब अगर आप ये आपने खा लिया, 6 आपने कपड़े दे दिया और 1 आपने यूनिट ऑफ फूड ले लिया. I am saying that when you are going to sacrifice more, whenever you want to for example purchase another unit of food, you have to sacrifice clothing, for example, in case of getting more food. ठीक है, now the value of food for you, or the marginal utility which you are gaining from eating that one more particular unit of food, is not worthy enough to sacrifice 6 units of cloth. ठीक है, why? Because your marginal rate of utility has started to diminish. अब अगर आप दोबारा 1 unit of food ले रहे हैं, it is not the same as the first one for which you were willing to sacrifice 6 units of clothing. The next unit of food which you want to eat is not valuable enough for you to sacrifice 6 more units of clothes. Okay, the next unit which you want to eat, the next unit of 1 unit of food which you want to additionally purchase, is now valuable for you for only 4 units. ठीक है, पहले आप 6 units कुर्बान करने के लिए तैयार थे. You have sacrificed 6 units of clothing in order to get one more unit of food. Now you are sacrificing only 4 units of clothing in order to get one more unit of food. ठीक है, एक यूनिट और लेने के लिए now you are sacrificing 4, यानी कि lesser amount of clothing are being sacrificed in order to get one more unit of food. This is the discussion which I am making here. This is the point which I am making here. And why you have declined, or why the value of food is not as much for you now, because first you were sacrificing 6 units and now you are sacrificing only 4 units. This is because of law of diminishing marginal utility, that whenever you will be purchasing, or you will be using a certain product again and again, the marginal utility of using that particular product will start to diminish. अब आपको उतना फायदा उसमें से नहीं मिल रहा जितना फायदा आपको पहले मिल रहा था. And likewise is the case that if, for example, this was the case when you were moving from point B to point E. Now I'm saying that you want to move from point D to point E, and if you want to see and measure the slope between point D and point E, because you are looking that if you want to increase one more unit of food, you are only able to sacrifice, and you are only sacrificing 2 units of food, 2 units of clothing. Why? Because now again the same discussion, food is not much valuable for you now as it was valuable for me when I was at point A and I was moving from point A to point B. क्योंकि point A में मेरे पास बहुत ज़्यादा ये कपड़े थे, 16 units of कपड़े थे मेरे पास, और 1 unit of food था. ठीक है, मुझे खाने की ज़रूरत थी. I had to increase my food intake. So in order to increase my food intake, because I was hungry, I was giving so much value to food, okay, that I have sacrificed 6 units of clothes. Okay, so when I have eaten this one more unit of food, and I am now at point B. At point B, I have 10 units of clothing and 2 units of food. So if, for example, I want to add one more unit of you can say food, I will be able to I will be giving value to this additional of 1 unit of food by sacrificing only 4 units of clothing. So if you want to move from point E to point G, you are looking that again, if you want to increase one more unit of food, you are only sacrificing one unit of clothing. ठीक है, आपके लिए अब कपड़े की वर्थ जो है वो कम होती जा रही है, अब कपड़े की नहीं, खाने की वर्थ कम होती जा रही है, so that you are sacrificing lesser amount of clothing. And this is the same discussion which we have, this is the same description which we have wrote here, and we are saying that first of all you want to see that after calculating the slope of this particular curve, okay, this is calculated by dividing rise over run. So it is a division of rise over run in order to get the slope of it. But the slope of indifference curve is not only any other, or you can say there is a certain name given to this particular slope. The certain name which is given to this particular slope is MRS, marginal rate of substitution. The magnitude of the slope of an indifference curve measures the consumer's marginal rate of substitution. ठीक है, at which rate the consumer is sacrificing or substituting one good with the other. तो अगर हमने एक और गुड लेना था of food, he was substituting the clothes, 6 units of clothes in order to get one more unit of food, and the rate of substituting this was -6 over 1, which is again -6. ठीक है, okay. So this मैं अब आपसे दोबारा पूछूंगा कि what is the slope of indifference curve. So you should know this, that the name or the technical term or the terminology of slope for indifference curve is marginal rate of substitution, MRS. In this figure, the MRS between clothing and food falls from 6 between A and B to 4 between B and D to 2 between D and E to 1. ठीक है, तो अगर minus here is just showing you the negative relationship between clothing and food. Why? Because if you want to increase the unit of food, you have to sacrifice some units of clothes. So ये minus जो है वो उस तरह का minus नहीं है कि whenever the value, for example, or the sign value जो है वो जितनी भी कम होती जाएगी वो उतनी ही bigger होती जाएगी. okay, when it is negative. But here we are saying that the marginal rate of substitution is falling from 6 to 4 and 4 to 2 and 2 to 1. Okay, so this is what we say, and we are going to introduce the next assumption. हमने तीन assumptions पहले discuss कर लिए. The first assumption was completeness, the second was transitivity, the third was more is better than less. Now we are going to discuss the fourth assumption by introducing first of all the marginal rate of substitution, that is maximum amount of a good that a consumer is willing to give up in order to obtain one additional unit of the other. Maximum amount of a good that the consumer is going to sacrifice in order to get one more unit of another good, which is one. Okay, one more unit of good, which is food. So he is sacrificing 6 units of clothes in order to get one more unit of food, and this is the definition here, which is known as the marginal rate of substitution. And this is the fourth assumption, convexity. Convexity means that the indifference curve will be convex to the origin, will be convex to the origin, or convex to the origin का मतलब ये होता है कि if this is the origin, then the indifference curve will be like this. And what is concave to the origin? It looks like this is the shape. ठीक है, if the you can say this particular area of the curve or of the graph is far than the origin, then we say that this is a concave graph, and this which is more, you can say, near to the origin is convex. So the marginal rate of substitution again, and here we are discussing the fourth assumption, which is convexity. So observe that the MRS falls as we move down from 6 to 4, and from 4 to 2, and from 2 to 1. Minus को नहीं आपने देखना, because whenever there is a minus sign you will say that the value is getting greater and greater. Minus sign is just showing you the relationship of the two you can say axes, x axis और y axis के दरमियान में relation show कर रहा है. So therefore we are saying that we are taking the absolute, you can say, absolute values of marginal rate of substitution. So observe that the marginal rate of substitution falls as we move down the indifference curve. The decline in the marginal rate of substitution reflects our fourth assumption regarding consumer preferences, which is a diminishing marginal rate of substitution, that the marginal rate of substitution is diminishing. Marginal rate of substitution is diminishing. First it was 6, now it is 4, and now it has become 2, and from 2 it has become 1. So the marginal rate of substitution is diminishing. When the marginal rate of substitution diminishes along an indifference curve, the curve is convex. ठीक है, जब भी ऐसे होगा that the slope is diminishing, or in this particular case the marginal rate of substitution is diminishing, then the curve or the indifference curve in this particular context will be convex. Okay, so these are some of the concepts relevant to the indifference curve. Now there is another concept of perfect substitutes and perfect complements, in which we are now talking about the marginal rate of substitution. So two goods for which the marginal rate of substitution of one for the other is constant. Okay, when MRS is constant, then consider that it is a case of perfect substitute. But if we are looking that MRS is equal to 0, or if marginal rate of substitution is infinity, okay, is infinite, then this is a case when the you can say the commodity between which we are making the difference curve are perfect complements to each other. One is required for the other. So we are giving this example in the coming slides so that it can be more easy for you to understand. So this is an example of perfect substitute in which we have apple juice and we have orange juice, and in this particular, you can say, perfect substitutes, this particular panel A, okay, Bob is any consumer, for example, views orange juice and apple juice as perfect substitutes. He is always indifferent between a glass of one and a glass of the other. So if here we have 2 glasses of apples, he will be indifferent between 2 glasses of oranges, and if we have 3 glasses of oranges, he is indifferent between 3 glasses of oranges and 3 glasses of apples. So here marginal rate of substitution, which is calculated by rise over run, 3 over 3, okay, 3 over 3 is equal to 1. Here what is happening, 4 over 4 4 over 4 is equal to 1. Again 2 over 2 is equal to 1. So again every marginal rate of substitution here is constant. Okay, but what is the case in a perfect complement? We are looking that there are different goods here, but here we have left shoe and right shoe. ठीक है, a pair of shoes, लेकिन left और right के दरमियान में आपने choose करना है. So in B, Jane views left shoes and right shoes as a perfect complement. So if for example this is the case where this is a case when you are getting one right shoe and one left shoe, whether you have another left shoe, ठीक है, this is just increasing the units of left shoe. ठीक है, ये सिर्फ आपको यूनिट जो है वो इंक्रीज करे. दिस इज नॉट शोइंग एनी यू कैन से इंडिफरेंस ऑफ द कंज्यूमर बिटवीन राइट एंड लेफ्ट शू. ठीक है, तो इफ दिस इज द केस ऑफ वन, ठीक है, in which you are having one unit of left shoe and one unit of right shoe, the next case will be here where you are getting 2 units of right shoe and 2 units of left shoe. यानी हर एक यूनिट बेशक आप यहाँ पर फॉर एग्जांपल इफ यू आर सेइंग दैट दिस इज 1 unit of left shoe and you are increasing the right shoes, it is not giving him any benefit, it is not giving him any satisfaction. Any satisfaction on this particular indifference curve is equal for him, it is not giving any extra satisfaction to him. So if you increase the number of, so for example here we are at one right shoe and one left shoe, and we have increased the quantity of left shoe, this left shoe is not giving him any extra satisfaction unless or until another shoe of left is also added. So they both come up with this, they both join at this particular point. Likewise if we are at this particular point, ठीक है, 2 या इसको हम ले लेते हैं and we are adding one more right shoe, this will not give any preference to the consumer unless or until another left shoe is given to him, and they both are met at this particular point. ठीक है, तो इस वजह से the indifference curve for a perfect complement is has a right angle shape graph. ठीक है, whereas the perfect substitute we have a linear indifference curve. ठीक है, so I hope you have understand the things which we have discussed. So let me give you a brief summary of what we have discussed. So first of all we have discussed the from theory, okay, theory of consumer behavior. In this, first of all we have discussed the consumer preferences, okay, and we have said that the concept of consumer preferences will be add up with the concept of budget constraint in order to get consumer choices. But first we were focused to discuss consumer preferences. In consumer preferences, the first thing which we have discussed is the concept of market basket. Okay, and there are in a market basket की definition आपको पता है ना कि among different commodities, among different market baskets we want to choose. ठीक है, and here we have discussed the concept of indifference curve. Then we have discussed the concept of indifference curve between among different market baskets. We can clearly identify that one particular market basket will be given preference to the other, but there was a scenario of indifference curve as well where the consumer was indifferent, in choosing any one of the market baskets. So we have discussed the concept of indifference curve, and then we have discussed the concept of indifference curve map. ठीक है, indifference curve map in which there were more than one indifference maps है, मैं लिख देता हूँ shortcut. So उसके अंदर हमने बोला था कि higher the indifference curve, this is indifference curve and this is also an indifference curve 1, 2 and 3. Higher the indifference curve, more utility the consumer will be having. ठीक है, ये हमने indifference map पढ़ा था. And then we have discussed the property of indifference curve, that the indifference curve cannot intersect with each other. ठीक है, and why this is so? Because what happens is it violates the assumption of transitivity. And then also we have discussed the concept of the fourth assumption of indifference curve or the consumer behavior, which is convexity. ठीक है, convexity, which is a result of marginal rate of substitution when it starts to diminish. ठीक है, so there is a diminishing marginal rate of substitution. ठीक है, this is the fourth assumption which we have discussed, and then we have discussed the indifference curves of perfect substitute and perfect complements. So see you in the next lecture and next video, inshallah.